Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Woo. Vinny Cuevas, yo. Vinny's views, yo. Yo. Came from humble beginnings, the South Bronx, Vinny Cuevas, Puerto Rican descent with big dreams, a go-getter. Gotta know where you've been, so you know where you're going. Hustle hard is the motto, popularity's growing. He talk about them politics, healthcare issues, now we lit. Mets and Yankees, Nets and Knicks, Giants, Rangers, championships. Major views, conservative. Everybody got their own life to live. A closer look, like you're zooming in. I don't know about you, but I'll be tuning in to Vinny's views. Vinny's views, I'll be tuning into Vinny's views. Vinny's views, make sure you listening to Vinny's views. Vinny's views, I'll be tuning into Vinny's views. Vinny's views. Vinny's views. Vinny's views, I'll be tuning into Vinny's views. Vinny's views, make sure you listening to Vinny's views. Vinny's views, I'll be tuning into Vinny's views. Vinny's views.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Vinny's Views. Before I get started, I just want to send my condolences to the families of the victims of the Broward County school shooting. A senseless act that could have been avoided with proper measures. So, without further ado, tonight I'm going to try and assess the situation as to how we can prevent another what seems to be a routine mass shooting. Are stronger gun laws the solution? Or should we just omit the gun-free zones and implement law enforcement officials at the schools along with metal detectors? I'll also have a special guest, a law enforcement official, first responder. As usual, it seems to come out of nowhere. And as usual, it didn't. The murders came out of nowhere. The preventions haven't. This murderer who took the lives of 17 people at the high school in Parkland, Florida, was on everybody's radar list, from the school authorities to the local police to the FBI, which failed to follow its own protocols when a person close to the future killer called to warn the Bureau that he was contemplating a school massacre. Everybody knew, nobody did anything. So what should be done? What should be done? Gun control, the left says. Always offering ideas that range from the trivial to the patently unconstitutional. Whatever the outrage of the day is, the left answer is to seek to ban whatever implement was used in it. Until the murders in Las Vegas, nobody outside of gun nut circles had heard of a bump stock. But bump stocks became public enemy number one. In the debate over so-called assault weapons, every feature from the functional to the cosmetic has had its turn as evil. The Parkland killer didn't use some exotic weapon. He used a ubiquitous .223 caliber AR patent rifle, the most common sporting and target shooting rifle in the United States. It attempts to mythologize the AR as an exotic weapon of war are reliably absurd. Dr. Ernest E. Moore wrote in the Times, he displays that the usual ignorant fear-mongering about the AR, an assault rifle, is designed to deliver fatal wounds to multiple individuals within a short period of time. It has no other purpose, he writes. It's unclear what other purpose it could serve, given how and why it was made. In reality, AR-style rifles are used in everything from small game hunting to competitive marksmanship. Dr. Moore and other gun control advocates reliably allied the differences. But the civilian AR rifle is a very different instrument from its fully automatic cousins issued to U.S. Armed Forces. What kind of gun control might have prevented the Florida killings? For all the talk of moderate and common sense, reforms plausible, regulatory approaches to preventing such acts of mass violence are few but far between, folks. The Florida shooter had no criminal record and had not been judgmentally incompetent. And so he was able to purchase rifles and other long guns legally, passing a background check in the process. Given the fact that the local police and the FBI failed to look seriously into him after receiving credible warnings of his murderous intent, it is difficult to imagine that a clerk at a sporting goods store is going to be much more effective staging an intervention at this point of sale. Let's be reasonable here. Some gun control advocates would like to ban the sale of semi-automatic rifles and handguns, which is to say the majority of rifles and the great majority of handguns, but there are already millions of those in circulation. These would have to be confiscated as they were in Australia. In order to make such program effective, the prohibition of most small arms and the seizure of millions of firearms already in private hands might be a lot of things, but it's not moderate or common sense. It would be a radical step, and one that almost certainly will be found to be unconstitutional, by the way. All guns combined, from Granddad's duck gun to the scary looking black instruments that so repulse our progressive friends, represents a vanishing small share of the weapons used in violent crimes in the United States, something on the order of 2% in a typical year. In spite of the media hysteria, violent crimes involving so-called assault rifles are so rare that the FBI data don't even break them out into a separate category. Here are two separate questions that, at work I talk about it. One involving ordinary crime and the other involving public spectacles like the one in Florida. When it comes to a workday, violent crime, there is room for meaningful gun control, which means prosecuting violent criminals and their enablers rather than harassing hobbyists down at the local gun store. In city after city, the data shows that homicides overwhelmingly are committed by people with prior police records, often involving violent crime committed with firearms. This is the truth. In New York City, about 90% of the homicides are committed by people with prior records, according to a New York Times survey of police records. Like the killer in Florida, they just don't come out of nowhere. Dealing with that means most vigorously prosecuting violent crimes short of homicide, as well as doing the very hard work of improving the parole and probation systems. It also means following up on prosecutions in straw buyer cases, something that both local and federal authorities have neglected to do. Often as a matter of policy, as in the case of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago, forgive the shop-worn phrase, but we really ought to at least try enforcing the laws on the books before we go passing burdensome new ones. As for homicidal spectaculars like the one in Florida, additional gun control measures are unlikely to prove effective. It's worth keeping in mind that two of the worst of those massacres at Bath, Michigan, and Oklahoma City involve no firearms at all. But that doesn't mean that nothing can be done. Our police and mental health authorities, including the fumbling FBI, are not performing as well as they should be. Many of these cases should have been prevented well before the bullets started flying. Perhaps the gentleman at the FBI could be persuaded to pick up a phone from time to time in cases such as these. Omar Mateen, Nadal Hazan, Adam Lanza, Safalo Saripov, None of these men simply stepped out of the shadows. We already have in place protocols for placing people in temporary custody when they are judged like to be danger to themselves or others. But we cannot make use of those powers if the relevant law enforcement and mental health authorities are unable or unwilling to intervene. Beyond that, defensive measures are called for. Schools are targets, and we should treat them as such. With better gatekeeping and, if necessary, armed guards. We wish it weren't the case, but wishful thinking isn't enough. We can, how can I say it? We can also do more with venue security, especially for wide open events such as the concert in Las Vegas. There are many distinct kinds of violent crimes. The drug murders in Chicago street corners are a phenomenon, distinct from the killings in high schools and other public places, with different patterns of behavior, different kinds of perpetrators, different kinds of weapons, different motives, etc., etc. The desire for a simple, common sense solution to these horrifying crimes is easy to understand. But is it stupid and dishonest to pretend that changing the rules for private transactions at gun shows is going to stop that, or that similar measures are likely to have any meaningful effect at all? Policing criminals is harder work than policing the legal commerce of federally licensed firearm dealers. But it's the work that we're paying for and the work that we need done. My personal suggestion would be to maybe train teachers and have them armed, or to fund a special law enforcement school unit. But I'm no expert at this, but my guest is. I want to welcome Rafael Villanova. He's not only a childhood friend, he's a first responder and law enforcement official in one of the municipalities in the New England and Rhode Island area. Welcome, my brother. How are you, Rafael?
Thank you. Welcome. I'm good. How are you, Mr. Vinny Cuevas?
Hanging in there, debating as always. You know what I do, my brother.
It's good. Debate's always a good thing. So as long as there's one common ground in a debate, everyone could just go ahead and agree to disagree.
That's right. I mean, some don't, some do, but you know what's going on, brother. No one better to describe the situation than yourself. Like you heard me speak. I was talking about gun laws and what could be done to prevent any more of these mass murders. And I'm sure you dealt with a lot of them being in the New England area, not only domestically, individually and stuff. What's your opinion and your take on what's going on and what you think could be done as a law enforcement official?
Well, there's a lot of steps that can be taken. I mean, granted, people are yelling out more gun laws, more gun restrictions, but at the end of the day, you're going to always run into some sort of mass shooting somewhere. And it's unfortunate because that's the type of society that we're living in today.
Unfortunately, yes.
And, I believe you and I were having a conversation some weeks ago, or maybe some couple of days ago, a day ago, about, how unfortunate certain situations come about. Like you and I grew up pretty much in the same neighborhood in South Bronx.
Exactly.
And we saw violence at first hand. So, to say you want more restrictions, not you per se, but people are yelling out more gun restrictions. You want the federal government to step in and say, hey, you know what? Let's start looking at everyone's blue card. Let's see who has blue cards. Let's just say, for instance, in the state of New York, for you to have a gun to carry, there is no open carry in New York. And neither there's any here in New England as well. Basically, you would have to need some sort of an affidavit, an application, some sort of something. You have to either go to for instance, in New England, you have to go to your respective attorney general's office. I don't know how it is in New York now, but I'm sure it probably is the same way.
Probably the same procedure, yeah.
And you go in and you sign, you get your affidavit signed and so forth and so on to get an open carry or permit to carry concealed. work you do, or if you're a private investigator, or if you're some sort of like working for some heavy-duty Brinks truck company that delivers money to banks or cashier places, and that's more procedural stuff. So, people say, hey, we want more restrictions. Well, you know what? The state of New York and New England have those restrictions, and some states do. So the question comes, what more restrictions people want?
And you're right about that. You're right, because look at Chicago, for Christ's sake. They have very strong gun laws, and we see what goes on there.
And it never stops the gun violence that's out there.
No, it's not always about mass shootings. We're talking,
just a couple of weekends ago, what did I hear? Something about 19 in 24 hours, or I think there was one time I was sitting back and I was at work, and usually we have the news playing in the background just because it's there. And next thing you know, we're seeing one week, and I think they had like almost 30 in Chicago. I mean, how do you stop it? So people say, how do you stop it? Well, there's no clear answer on how do you stop it. There's so many restrictions that people don't even realize what the restrictions are. And to go in and find out what the gun restrictions are, well, let's see. Everything's readily available. I mean, everyone technically has their heads in their phones. Everyone has a smartphone nowadays.
Exactly.
You might still have some people who have flip phones, but nowadays the majority of people have smartphones. Look it up. Look up what are the gun restrictions in your respective state. Just always remember.
What happens is everything becomes so politicized, and I'm not attacking either side, because it almost feels like they looked for this opportunity to make a case. Like if a kid sets a house on fire with a lighter, are you going to ban lighters? It's just, we got to come to common sense and common ground here. Like the bump stock, nobody knew what the hell that was.
No.
Until this guy in Vegas did it. Now they wanted to ban that, but that been banned. So people talk without the proper knowledge, and politicians, they give them the ammo knowing that it's all false narrative, man.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And because they're politicizing, which I have to tell you, I despise politicizing on either side.
Not when it comes to this.
The Democrats and Republicans politicize mental illness. People are politicizing mental illness with this. Well, there is a restriction, and people may not know it, that you're not supposed to own a gun if you have mental illness. It is written, and people need to read it and understand it. There is also where if you hold a domestic violence, or you're a criminal or a felon, or you serve time in prison, you are not to own a gun. That's where it becomes a lot tougher.
Which should be pretty much common sense, that if you have all these flaws, obviously, who's going to really give you a gun legally? You know what I'm saying? And when it comes to mental illness, like, we overlook that. Like, you're a law enforcement official. I would never attack a law enforcement official, because you guys are who I call when something doesn't go right, if I can handle it myself. Well, I don't want to become a vigilante, but, this kid pretty much warned them, pretty much told them what he was going to do. They visited his house, I think it was like 39 times. And it's like, do they take it serious, or they just have so many calls that just...
No, I think what it is that, on a law enforcement standard or first responder standard is, we do take things as serious as they come along. We don't usually joke around. Granted, I've been in it for about 20 plus years now. I have a couple more years to go. God willing, I'll be able to retire and move on to do something else. But we do take it serious. What it is that there's so much to do. For instance, if a school calls in and says, listen, they have a lockdown, and someone on the premise with a gun, usually what happens with that is there's no information given. So it plays both sides. For instance, most school lockdowns, these teachers are only prepared to teach.
Correct.
They go through their certifications, they do what they need to do. What they are not prepared to do is go ahead and say they're prepared for a fire drill, which I find it funny, because growing blocks.
Which I've done several times, and sprinklers and all that, you know?
Of course. And, and people are out, you walk, and everyone's walking out in an orderly fashion. First of all, schools don't realize what happened in Florida, what happened in Newtown, what happened in Columbine, what happened in so many schools across the United States, is that there is no orderly fashion. And the point that I'm getting to this is that so much practice becomes a joke at this point. And so, because it's public schools, people tend to turn around and say, well, they're cutting fundings for this, or they're cutting funding for this. But yet they still have some sort of program that you sit there and you go, okay, well, when did they develop this program? But they didn't have money for X amount to protect our children.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. You're right.
So we're not talking about the guy driving down the Belt Parkway or driving down some sort of road and decides that he wants to run over 20 million people. We're talking about a 19-year-old who went into a school heavily armed and decided to pick his shots at innocent people who just happen to be as innocent as they can be, going about their day, from teachers to students to any staff. I gotta say, what people are calling for when they say restrictions, kind of like it puts a little more fear on what the people want.
And what restrictions? Because they're talking about restrictions. They say AR-15s. That should have been so. But let me tell you something. In Virginia, that guy that killed the most people did it with a handgun.
Correct. And we can go a lot further. I mean, just over the floor. The guy who we all claim is a terrorist ran over the people who were on the bicycle track in New York.
Yeah, some of these things are just inevitable. Like,
correct. And, what we're gonna do? We're gonna ban so many different things, but people are gonna say, no, Vinny, but this is not what we want to ban. This is not what we want the restrictions for. We're talking about handguns. Well, okay. Well, just this past weekend, there was in China, there was a person who was wielding a knife and killed, I don't know how many people, but injured like 20 in the process. So, what are we going to do? We're going to ban that.
It's unfortunate, Ralph, that...
Timothy McVeigh used fertilizer. They put restrictions on it.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's still being sold.
It's almost like when one of these criminals have this mindset, 80% of the times they come through with what they plan. They premeditate. Some of it is inevitable. Like the guy from Vegas, he had a clean background, lived a normal life. How can you prevent that guy from doing what he did? It's just, I understand, but either way, if you want to obtain an arm, you can. I know I can. I wouldn't, but I don't really need to do it legally. I am from, I come from the hood,
Right.
where nothing is legal. But,
nothing is legal. Anyone at this point can obtain a firearm. You look at your common drug dealer.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
Who would buy weapons or guns in this case by the boatload because one, he is fearing for his life. And two, again, he wants to go out in his glory blaze, say hello to my little friend type of thing.
Yeah, that type of attitude, man. You're right.
And when people look at that and they go, wow, think about that. Well, more gun restrictions, more this, but then what do you do with the illegal guns? People are going to obtain them anyway.
The black market gets stronger, bro. And it just gets stronger. You're making more money for the illegal guns, dealers, smugglers. My suggestion would be, Ralph, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if we create an outfit that, like a law enforcement outfit for schools, or we train teachers to be armed. We got to get rid of the gun-free zones. We just have to, unfortunately, because look what's going on. It's just too much of it.
Right, and the more restrictions you put on, the more it's going to happen. For instance, let's just take prohibition. They took it off selling booze under the black market in the
Yes.
30s. And you're gonna laugh at me, but we talk about the Al Capones, the Charlie Lucianos. We talk about the former gangsters who
The epitome of that.
Right, and they made money off of drugs, booze, but booze was one that they felt that they put that on. And they said, well, let's do prohibition, and they put the restriction on. Doesn't matter, the person's going to do it.
Killer is going to kill.
Restrictions that you put on.
It's almost like terrorism, bro. They can't. It's almost like now they teach them. Well, if you can't get a hold of an explosion, use a car, use a knife.
Correct.
Like how do you stop this? It's just.
Yeah. Well, the way you stop so much things. I mean, you have to acknowledge, teach.
Because you're listening to people. Yeah, you listen to people talk about the Australia laws. Collect all the guns, and it's almost like they're saying to abolish the Second Amendment. Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Well, Second Amendment, first of all, is old. It needs to be amended somehow, some way. But that's under a federal, and that was created because there were conflicts between small government and big government.
Yes.
And
kind of like now.
But kind of like now, but they're not in the sense. Now, if you get rid of the Second Amendment, what do you have? You have smaller government that's going to step in, a governor, which people don't realize, and in my opinion, can set off a chain of reaction and say, hey, you know what? They're blaming their, quote unquote, they blaming the president, they blame their politician, they blame their congressman. These are people you did put in office, granted, okay. But the biggest deal that the people need to understand is what people want is a scary thought. And I don't think they're prepared for that scary thought, where they're going to have, and I'm not talking about, your average police officer is going to pull you over and say, hey, listen, you got a gun on you. Let me just take that out from your hand.
Right.
We're talking about, the scariest possibility could be, quote unquote, is there could be a list. And that list could have everyone who owns a gun, everyone who applied for their blue card. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's go on further than just waiting for the 20 days. Let's go on further. Let's say this thing goes way beyond and people get what they want. Right. Now that people get what they want, now they have some sort of government knocking on their door saying, hey, you know what, Vinny Cuevas, we noticed that you have a blue card. Can we come in and see how many weapons you have? So now you're infringing on so many other amendments, your Fourth Amendment rights, because
like invading someone's property. It almost sounds like a dictatorship to me.
Correct, it does. So this is where people got to understand. You have to take some good with the bad.
They don't understand, brother. They just don't. They just sometimes they're just. And this ain't talking politically. This is just people just react, man, and they'll say whatever comes to their minds. They make baseless points, and we can't work that way. We gotta. We have to do something. But we gotta let's compromise. Let's see how we can do it. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you something, and it's a little intimate, and I'm sorry I have to bring it up, but I have to bring it up. As a law enforcement, when you have to go tell a parent that their child is no longer coming home, and the reason I'm saying it's a little intimate is because you lost a child, not to the same circumstances, so you know that pain, right? So, like, how do you do this when especially you that you've lost a child? How do you go tell somebody this? It's hard to fathom. How do you do that?
Well, it is very hard to fathom to lose a child because you watched that the moment that child was there and you were in that delivery room, you saw that child take their first breath. Yeah. To find out that your child will no longer come home, there is no actual answer to repair that. I think the old saying goes, and I learned this, when you lose a parent, it's a death, a mother or father. Mm-hmm. When you lose a husband or a wife, you're called a widower. When you lose a child, there's actually no name for it. None.
They can't be. You just can't name it.
There is no name for it. I've looked, I've checked, I've seeked the answer. There is no answer for it. And to tell a parent that you lost a child is just the emotion on the face. First of all, is it becomes no, it's not real. This has become
It's almost like
situation.
it's almost like you freeze up a little bit, right?
Correct. And it's you get this numbness throughout your body, and you say to yourself, "Wow, where do we go from here?" And you're thinking about so many other different things.
Yeah.
But to say how to explain it to a parent, there really isn't a way to disguise it. There's no frosting on this cake.
No, you gotta. Yeah, that's the hard part. You gotta just go out there and be straightforward.
That's right. There is no frosting on the cake, and being and living that from firsthand, I was, and you say it is very intimate. Yes, it is. I was there, and I say this very clearly. I was there for my daughter's first breath, and I was there, fortunate enough to see my daughter's last breath. And when I say fortunate enough, my daughter wasn't killed by.
No, I know.
Wasn't killed by some mass building shooter but she did have her illness, and that in itself can really play a role. To have a normal child get shot by someone, shot and killed, is one that it becomes a surrealness. So there's really
because it's almost like instantaneous. It's almost like unexpected with your situation, and I don't want to bring up your situation, but I'm just saying, with your situation, you never ready, but you almost expect and know that this can happen.
Correct.
So I don't know if you can prepare yourself for that, maybe a little bit, opposed to just getting the door knock where you're thinking this is your child and it's somebody telling you your child's never coming home.
Correct. Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
There's really no preparing yourself.
No, there isn't. I know. I can imagine. But
there really isn't, and it becomes very difficult. And whether the child had illness or the child was shot and killed, there is no preparing yourself for it.
That's something I hope I never have to.
No,
have to go through.
And that's the unfortunate part. But my biggest thing is educate when it comes to these first. Our thing is.
What's so difficult
active
too?
Shooters.
Yeah.
For these active shooters is educate, practice, talk to your children.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take much time to give the description of the person. It doesn't take enough time. There is time. Just always assure your child find the safest place in the building. There is no other way I can explain it. And maybe put retired officers on the job who are looking for jobs. We're a country, as our president say, that we're so great that we can build businesses, we can build applications, we can do so much. We can do security armed, who can dress just like normal teachers, who have the ability to help out teachers as well as teaching.
Oh, no, be maintenance men, but let them be like,
Well, it can be maintenance men who can pose as that, and then,
But if you ask me, I'd rather have it more optic, like where it's almost like if you're an undercover, you only react when the situation is happening, opposed to when you're in uniform, the perpetrator comes and says, wait a minute, I might not stand a chance here. Because a lot of these guys go in there, they probably don't go with the intent to get killed. A lot of them kill themselves. But if they can get away, they try to get away. So I guess if you deter it, it might be better than undercover, because undercover, you still... The chance of them coming in and killing a few people before you take them down are high. Opposed to, you get a couple of uniform guys where they see it and they know there's armed guards there. They might be a little reluctant. So it's a catch-22. There's a few things that we could do.
And then at that point, it comes to the point where you need to identify yourself. That's why retired.
Yeah.
That's why I say have retired law enforcement. You can have a mixture because you don't just want to pick just one. I mean, you can have military guys. You can have regular guys like yourself who've done private investigative work,
Yeah.
who've done armed security stuff. The point I'm trying to make is you make sure that you have your group of people who are going to train with those police officers, meet, greet, and understand, have a constant communications with that police department. There are ways of doing these things. Granted, I don't expect a teacher who is teaching to go ahead and be armed, because here's where the catch-22
Well, I
is
know
at.
about that. You get into a dispute with a student, they can disarm you too.
One, that's one. And two, a teacher is not going to understand a stand-down order.
Yeah. You
know,
can only teach them so
drop
much.
your weapon, drop your weapon. In that moment, that teacher's not thinking clearly enough because they're not put in a law enforcement, first responder, or military person stand-down orders either. So that's why I say constant communications. You do have to have, they have what they call school resource officers, but that is also dwindling down. I mean, some schools, if you walk into them, I'm sure you probably have maybe one or two school resource officers, and they're not enough to carry on. I mean, they could be the first people who may get hit because they're not paying attention. They're going about their days just as much as the teachers are.
Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, you're right. Yeah.
Remember, these things, they happen. I mean, I hate to bring it up, but 9/11 was just a normal day for everyone else.
Well, I didn't live too far. I even videotaped that.
And look at what happened. It caught us off guard. It's just, where and when to be ready. And constant vigilance requires you to be ready.
Vigilance, intelligence, common sense, and we need to compromise, not go against one another, because that doesn't help the cause. So that's what we got to do, man. Listen, Rafael, unfortunately we out of time. I could talk to you for 2 hours here.
No, that's fine.
But I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your courage. You inspire me a lot. You know that, brother. And not only with what you do, but with what you've been through, and you keep your composure and you fight for your family. And not too many men out there like you, man. And I give you kudos, brother. And thank you for all you do for the community and keeping us safe, man.
Thank you. Unfortunately, it's not in New York, but yeah.
No, you don't want to be here.
No, that's fine. But a lot of my stuff I like to think is the streets of New York. I like to always, and it's kind of corny. I got two educations. I got one from the street and one in school. So.
We both got that street one, and we both overcame it and got out of there. And thank God we're not in it. And
That's correct.
We doing what we do. I appreciate you, my brother. Always a pleasure. You're welcome to come up anytime you want, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph.
Yep.
Have a good one, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Very extensive conversation and very educational. I mean, there's just certain folks out there that can detail things in a way I probably can't. I can be the conduit. But anyway, folks, I just want to thank you all for joining in, and my condolences to all those families. Let's do our best. Let's reason. Let's compromise. Let's not fight. And remember, folks, I'm Vinny. These are my views.